Hi everyone, welcome to Grid Down Consulting's Q&A with Jonathan Hollerman. Today we are doing a current events update. So we're just going to dive right in. Thanks, John, for joining us today. So the next topic that we did have a couple of questions about and that we've seen happening, changes happening. I know you've talked with Dr. Peter Pry on many occasions here, but he's also talked about what's been going on in Iran.
Right.
I shared this article before from the Gatestone Institute, and I'm going to share it down in the comments again below, because if you haven't read it, you definitely need to.
Yeah. So
What are your thoughts?
we shared this article before, but I think the crux of it is if you're living in a box and you haven't watching the news, somebody, I almost said Israel, but somebody assassinated the top Iranian nuclear scientist, right? And they are accusing Israel of the assassination. Israel's not really denying it. They haven't really made any kind of public statement either way. They definitely didn't rush out to say it wasn't us. So literally their parliament, Iran's talking about a retaliation, could possibly be an attack. And it's hard if you go to your Associated Press, your NBCs. A lot of times you're not going to get a lot of accurate information because they have like canned responses. It ain't a big deal. It's just Iran, they're just this or that. But there's some key points here that are very important. So we do run the risk right now of Iran, their entire parliament a couple days ago, you can go see the video for yourself, was screaming death to America, death to Israel. Not people out in the streets, their
Right.
parliament.
Right.
Okay. So there could be ramifications from this, and I don't know what they are or how far they're going to go, but there could be retaliation attacks from this attack. I'm not even going to postulate whether we should or shouldn't have done this. Okay. And the problem is one of the big stories a week ago was like, oh my gosh, like Trump had to be talked down from attacking Iran before he got out of office. And I read the articles and that was the headline on CNN and NBC. And I read down through there, and basically in one of his security meetings, he had just brought up the fact of, he'd asked the question what his thing was, but the way they postulate it and the way they word it is like, Trump just wanted to press that button and everybody had to talk him out of it, which wasn't the case at all. It was just an open discussion, and he had just asked the question, and but anyways, so that's one thing. It's hard to trust with the media, and the media are basically saying like, Iran's only their nuclear weapons program is only enriched to 4.5%, but that is the uranium that we have our international nuclear scientists that can get to those facilities. They've got 2 or 3 facilities that they haven't. That's one of the reasons Trump got out of the agreement, is because they're not letting us into all their facilities.
Right.
You can go and look right now. There are multiple facilities that they have, their nuclear enrichment facilities, that they haven't been letting the nuclear inspectors in like they were supposed to. But the media they never cover that. They just like, oh, the ones that we do know about. Yeah, of course. They're the ones that they're getting inspected on. They're not going to enrich more than they're allowed to. But even under the Obama administration, said that based on the 4.5% enrichment, that within 18 months to 2 years they could have full nuclear weapons, right? But that's not the other thing. Is part of the other agreement is that they wouldn't do nuclear missile testing or like large missile testing. They've been doing that. They've been testing out of off of cargo ships out in the Caspian Sea, I think it is, out there. They've been doing a lot of things they weren't supposed to, which is why we pulled out of the agreement, because the agreement was one of the worst agreements ever anyway. So Iran is a very big threat. They may have multiple nuclear weapons right now. You can go down. So this is a really good, this is another thing we're going to post here that she just pulled up here. This is a great report by the Task Force on National and Homeland Security on surprise attacks that talks about the ICBMs and the real nuclear threat.
This is pretty recent. This just came out a couple weeks ago.
It is.
So it is well worth the read.
That came out before this Iran information before the Iran assassination. So that's important. We go back to the other one. So again, that article that you had up a second ago, if you scroll down through it, this is really big because this is information the media is not discussing on this. Does Iran currently have nuclear weapons? The media is not even asking that question. They're just pretending like it doesn't exist.
Right.
Biden has already said that he's going to re-enter the agreement with Iran, even though they're not. Every time we do these agreements, nobody else holds up to the agreement except the America. It's just us, right? So anyhow, yeah, that Gatestown Institute article is a really big one. So with all that said, so the media they always laugh at Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-il, and they always laugh at Iran. It's just these little countries. Well, guess what? Little countries are, even outside of the EMP threat, technology is changing. The last point I wanted to hit on here was a lot of people don't even realize that Azerbaijan and Armenia had a war here earlier this month, right? Yep. Azerbaijan and Armenia conflict, okay?
Right.
So this just happened in November. This is something that they've been fighting over, this patch of ground. It's good, you go to Wikipedia, get the background, go wherever, get the background. They've been fighting over this patch of dirt out there between their two countries since like 94, I think. It's been going back and forth. Well, it flared up on September 27th again, and they started fighting again, these two countries. And this time went completely different. Within 2 weeks, Azerbaijan completely decimated Armenia with new technology, drones. So yeah, I mean, there's a great article right there on it. Cheap drones from China, Turkey, and Israel are fueling conflicts. So Azerbaijan decimated Armenia with new technology and drones, unmanned drones. Destroyed, I forget how many planes and tanks. I mean, they destroyed so much of Armenia's military. Armenia within 2 weeks just surrendered. We surrender. Stop bombing us, stop blowing up all our stuff, because they didn't have the latest technology. So who's heard of Azerbaijan? To be honest with you, I had to look it up before this article and figure out how to pronounce the country, because who's heard of it, honestly. And so, I mean, little tiny countries can do incredible damages to big countries now. With modern technology, cyber attacks, cyber warfare, drone warfare. I mean, you can go out there, you can buy a $3,000 or $4,000 drone and fly it into a nuclear facility, right, with a brick of C4 on it. There's a lot of things there's a lot of great things with technology, but there's a lot more risks. So don't discount Iran. The media is like, Iran's beating the war drums, and they're blaming Trump, and whether he was right or wrong in doing it, or actually technically it wasn't Trump, it was probably Israel. Actually, we don't know it was Israel, right? So technically no one's claimed it yet, but somebody killed an Iranian scientist, and I doubt it was South Africa. So anyhow, yeah, I don't have any answers for international policy. I'm not an international policy expert, but the stuff that the media puts out there is just absurd on its face in a lot of cases. They just
and they're kind of hiding from it. I mean, it's rarely in the mainstream news anyways.
Yeah.
But this article is very interesting because it does go into a little bit of how it happened and what was used. So very interesting.
Yep.
Very interesting.
So a little tiny country. So the big country, they relied on their jet airplanes and their missile defenses and their radar, which couldn't pick up these new drones, and their military might and their tanks. They relied on the technology of yesteryear, and this other little tiny country went out and bought a bunch of drones and high-speed technological warfare and kicked their rear end in just like 2 weeks. Most of the media is not talking about it because still trying to figure out who won the election, but
right. Well, I love just to kind of end on that. And Peter Price article here. I love that the quote that they gave, and I think that this is true for us too. The history of failure in war can almost be summed up in 2 words: it's too late. Too late in comprehending the deadly purpose of a potential army, too late in realizing the mortal danger, and too late in preparedness. Um,
Amen.
and that came from General Douglas MacArthur. And that's what Armenia had kind of learned. It was a little too late. They relied on things from the past instead of working on how they could prepare their country for future attacks, and we're kind of right along with them in that same boat.
If the United States of America is right along with that, we're still building faster jets and bigger aircraft carriers, and we're still fighting, the technological warfare of a decade ago. So, yeah.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much, John. Appreciate all of your insight today.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you everyone for joining us today. And we hope to see you again soon. If you have any questions, feel free to comment here on Patreon, and we hope to see you in our next video. Thank you guys.